All right, so with the Kansas City Chiefs, we said last hour there's been a lot of talk about them becoming a dynasty. Several people are kind of comparing them to the Golden State Warriors.
And when Mahomes got the ball, let me read you what happened to every drive. Touchdown, touchdown, field goal, missed field goal, in position for a field goal. They scored on every drive they engineered with Mahomes. I mean, it really was Kevin Durant and Steph and the Warriors. Like, they just have figured the game out. It is just easier.
They're just that talented, and they're the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors can go like stretches and not make a bucket, and then all of a sudden they'll score 50 in a quarter on you. How many times have we heard this, guys? You can't turn the ball over 4 times in the NFL and win football games. Nah, the Chiefs can't. Like, they're the only team that's able to do it. They have a quarterback that can flip switches. They got a tight end who can flip switches. They got receivers that can flip switches. They got coaching staff that can flip switches. They got a defense that can do it. And so they break all these cliches. I'd love to sit here and tell you, like, man, sometime it's going to catch up to them. No, it won't. No, it won't. Skirt.
I don't know about that one, Dan Orlovsky. On the night of February 7th, 96 million people were left speechless as they watched the Kansas City Chiefs get steamrolled by a Tom Brady-led Buccaneers team. A Bucs team that had been consistently inconsistent on the road to the Super Bowl. Despite Brady's impressive postseason resume of 6 rings, it seemed like the writing was on the wall for Mahomes to continue his meteoric rise in the NFL, coinciding with Tampa Brady's twilight. Coming on the heels of a Super Bowl 54 victory against the 49ers, Kansas City dominated the following regular season with a 14-2 record. So when they made it to Super Bowl 55, it looked like the changing of the guard was bound to take place in Tampa. A new dynasty was in the making, ready to wreak havoc on the 31 other teams in the National Football League. And the King's throne was right there for the taking. Until it wasn't. I love the comparison of the Kansas City Chiefs to the 2015-16 pre-Kevin Durant era Golden State Warriors. No, not for the same reasons as the 3 men who just spoke before me, but rather because both of these teams found themselves extremely ahead of the curve, quickly winning their first championships with flashy and innovative ways of playing their respective sport. The sky seemed to be the limit for these two franchises, but after dominant showings in the regular season, both groups would be humbled in their quest to repeat as champs. My main objective is to analyze the state of the Kansas City Chiefs. So what purpose do the Warriors serve, you ask? As I stated in my Aaron Rodgers Spotlight video, which I recommend you check out after viewing this video, comparison is one of the most accessible and easy to understand ways of delivering your message to an audience. Therefore, the idea of doing a crossover sports comparison was way too tempting to pass up. After all, how often do you see tweets and social media comments like this? So, let's go over what these two teams have in common, then pinpoint where they went wrong, and what the Chiefs can do going forward to follow in the Warriors' footsteps and fulfill their dynastic aspirations. But first, theme music.
Ain't shit to me, it's a walk in the park. Y'all too smart, can't talk from the heart. I got sauce and it's all for the charts. It's all for the charts.
Let's start with the humble beginnings of each team's star. Both Mahomes and Curry would be raised by fathers who were professional athletes. Pat Mahomes Sr. played baseball and Del Curry basketball. These two had very successful careers, each playing for over a decade in their respective sport, and that work ethic would rub off on their sons. Del Curry would put Steph through what Steph would describe as the worst summer of his life between his freshman and sophomore years of high school. Due to his shorter stature, Steph needed to modify his jump shot for a quicker release against taller opponents to prevent them from blocking his shots. As difficult as it was, it benefited Steph in the long term. It may have been the difference between him being the greatest marksman of all time versus just another decent shooter. Pat Mahomes Sr. also tried to get his son to follow in his footsteps. Mahomes II was a tri-sport athlete, excelling in baseball, basketball, and football. When his father saw that Mahomes was initially being recruited as a safety for college football, he tried to convince his son to pursue baseball and basketball instead. However, number 15 stuck it out and ended up at Texas Tech. While both Steph and Mahomes would achieve success at the collegiate level, many were skeptical about the prospect of them being able to transition to the pros. Certain scouts felt that Steph was simply too undersized and too much of a liability on defense for the NBA, while Mahomes was viewed as an unfinished product who had enormous potential with a cannon arm, but also a tendency to turn the ball over. And nonetheless, these two were drafted in the first round, but the adversity would continue. Steph would be paired in the backcourt with Warriors guard Monte Ellis, a fan favorite and the team's best player. Ellis was not receptive at all to the idea of playing with a baby-faced assassin, simply answering no when asked on whether or not he could envision the two having a successful partnership. Remember, this was the old NBA where players didn't care when it came to saying controversial things like this. Steph would also have to struggle with some nasty and recurring ankle injuries. These ankle injuries typically do not end a basketball player's career, but they can severely minimize your impact. Just research Grant Hill's stats if you want to see an example of this. In his early days with Golden State, Steph was even getting benched for AC Law, a guard who lasted 4 years in the NBA, never averaging more than 6 points per game. Patrick Mahomes, in comparison, did have it much easier, being given the privilege of sitting behind Alex Smith for a year on a very stable Kansas City Chiefs team. However, the pressure was huge as the Chiefs let go of Smith after 2017, despite him having an MVP caliber season. The Chiefs had all of the right pieces, they just needed the guy at quarterback to push them over the hump. Bringing us to part 2, taking the league by storm. Free from Monte Ellis, nagging ankle injuries, and the hero ball he was forced to play by Mark Jackson, Steph Curry would lead the Golden State Warriors to new heights in the 2014-15 season. With the help of his splash brother, Klay Thompson, defensive enforcer Draymond Green, and new head coach Steve Kerr, the Warriors' aggressive three-point shooting and small ball caught the rest of the NBA off guard, as Steph would collect his first MVP trophy, and then NBA championship later that summer. The Warriors were both dominant and fun to watch. Likewise, Mahomes and his cannon arm, along with his mobility and acrobatic throws, took the Chiefs to new heights like they were hoping he could. The Chiefs would go on these scoring attacks where they put up multiple touchdowns on you in just a few minutes, leaving you wondering what the just happened. Utilizing Tyreek Hill's speed and Travis Kelce's finesse, Andy Reid's offensive genius finally found talent that was compatible with the scheme he wanted to run. After winning the MVP the prior year in Mahomes' second season as a starter, he would lead the Chiefs to a comeback victory in the Super Bowl against the 49ers. The NBA and NFL had both found their new golden boys. Or so they thought. After winning a championship, both of these teams would falter in the following season due to them ultimately drinking their own Kool-Aid. The Warriors started getting too cute for their own good. Opening the first half of the season with single-digit losses, Golden State decided to go for the wins record, which they achieved. The downside is they were worn out for the playoffs. If they had rested instead of trying to make history, Game 6 Klay would not have had to have come out against the Thunder. And maybe Steph Curry's MCL injury never occurs if he hadn't been putting so much stress on that knee all season long, chasing the wins record. But arguably their biggest hindrance in repeating as champs was Draymond Green's suspension from Game 5 of the NBA Finals. Draymond's emotion is so polarizing because it makes him a great leader, but it also gets him, and in this case, the entire team, into trouble. He smacked LeBron in the nuts because he was angry and couldn't play as a result of it. Game 5 is really what swung the momentum Cleveland's way. The same could be said for KC. Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy are great offensive masterminds, but at times they overthink things and get too fancy with their play calling. Like this play from the divisional round where Mahomes ends up getting a concussion to go along with his turf toe injury. It's 3rd and 1, you're up by 2 possessions, just run the ball up the middle. Like, how hard is that? And their own defensive leader Tyrann Mathieu would also get them into trouble by trying to engage in a war of trash talking with the GOAT. Tom Brady is the very last person you should be trying to piss off. He always gets the last laugh. Just ask Richard Sherman. Possibly my favorite picture in NFL history. And on this same drive, Mathieu would get called for pass interference, then give up a touchdown with just seconds left before the end of the first half to Antonio Brown. Both Steph and Mahomes were touted as the future of the league, going up against their predecessors in Brady and LeBron, and all it took was one loss for them to no longer be put into the same category. People forget, but Curry was considered the best player in basketball before the 2016 finals collapse, and people were already putting Mahomes in the GOAT debate. It almost feels as if the media was purposely building these two athletes up just so they could lose, and then use their failure to add to LeBron and Brady's legacy. But I'll stop while I'm ahead. I'll also end on this note. Going forward, I think the Chiefs can learn from their Super Bowl loss and get back to the big dance, even without getting their own KD. But it will take a few cost-cutting measures. Number 1, cut weight with the players you do not need. Sammy Watkins was expendable as Mecole Hardman was becoming a bigger focal point of the offense, just like the Warriors cut bait with Harrison Barnes. Number 2, don't be afraid to put a muzzle on Matthew. I would say he's too valuable to cut for leadership, but he needs to moderate his mouth if he wants to stay on the team. Number 3 is cool it with the pretentious play calling before you get Mahomes injured again. Perhaps Eric Bieniemy was trying to show off for the rest of the league and prove why he deserves a head coaching job, but either way, you've invested $500 million into Patrick Mahomes. Do not let him go by the wayside for selfish reasons. Lastly, limit the outside distractions. Every season, it's something new with the Chiefs. In 2018, it was Kareem Hunt and his assault case. Then before the 2019 season, it was Tyreek Hill's turn with his child abuse scandal. And now we're awaiting the results of Britt Reed, head coach Andy Reid's son, who for some reason still has not been charged with a DUI for hitting a car with a 5-year-old girl inside, who is now suffering brain damage. Despite the fact that he admitted to drinking that night, he's been a free man since. I'll put the GoFundMe link for the little girl in the description below. There isn't a sport with less certainty than football. The only thing we can count on at this point is Tom Brady at least sniffing a Super Bowl appearance, and the Detroit Lions being garbage. But the dynastic door is far from being shut on the Chiefs. As long as they have Andy Reid coaching and number 15 under center, you can count on Kansas City being a threat to take home the Lombardi Trophy come every September for the foreseeable future. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Give the rest of my channel a look if you like NBA beef or introspective videos such as my Spotlight documentary on Aaron Rodgers. Please like, subscribe, and share. And this is CT, and I'm signing out.